former Republican who believes that they will do this. Earlier today, I spoke to former Governor Bill Weld, who's running against Donald Trump in the primaries. He's written a letter to senators to say the party will be destroyed and your careers will ultimately be destroyed, and the Senate hold, the Republican hold on the Senate will disappear if you don't do the right thing. Do you agree with all of those views?
Well, I agree with Bill Weld. I share, I think, the pessimism of Tim Alberta that the Republicans are going to do the right thing. I had a conversation this week with former Defense Secretary Bill Cohen, and he says, listen, these people are intimidated by Trump. They're fearful of Trump, and to some extent, they're complicit. They like some of the things he's doing, and they simply don't have the fortitude. They don't have the moral backbone to stand up to him. They will risk, I think, looking ridiculous. They will risk their seats. And I think you'll maybe have a handful of people who will do the right thing. I think Mitt Romney will come around, perhaps Susan Collins, perhaps a handful of others. But, you know, it was interesting. The piece said, well, barring a admission of guilt, Trump has admitted guilt. He keeps admitting guilt, and they still don't change. So I think it's unfortunately unlikely that these people will rise to the occasion, which is why it's important for the American people to vote them out next November.
Tim, talk to me about who we're talking about, because these are senators from across this nation. You worked for Jeb Bush, a man who was a principled Republican, not a guy who was ideologically inflexible, but held to his conservative roots, while at the same time managing to have discussions with and enact legislation with people across party lines. Why are these United States senators so different? Some of them have served in state houses. Some of them have had occasion to have debates with people who don't share their views. Why is this the hill they want to die on?
Man, Ali, I wish I had the answer to that. I've just been disappointed, experienced disappointment after disappointment with a lot of folks that I used to admire who are in the Senate and the House in my party. And I just want to give a warning to your viewers that Alberta article just drove me into a blind rage when I was reading it on the way over here today. So I wouldn't recommend reading it before bed tonight. But look, here's the thing. There are a handful of folks who are either retiring or who have maintained their integrity, who we're talking about. Jennifer mentioned Mitt Romney. In the House, there's Adam Kinzinger. The main thing that upset me about this article is there's a congressman from Florida who is actually a Jeb supporter named Francis Rooney. He was the ambassador to the Vatican. So he's familiar with how diplomacy should work, right? And he has been a loyal ally of Trump, too loyal for my taste, all the way up until, this Ukraine incident. And basically what he said, he came out and just said, look, the facts do not look good. All he did was speak truth. And in the Alberta article, what he concedes is that a lot of his colleagues agree with him privately and yet still have targeted him and still basically pressured him into retirement out of loyalty to the president. These people have decided that they're going to lay their bet on short-term political gain because that's what their voters want them to do. None of them have the courage or the integrity or the willingness to step out against the president and take their chance with the voters next year. And I agree with Jennifer. I'll actually outflank her on pessimism. I don't really see that changing no matter what the circumstances are.
I'm just going to read from Tim's article what Representative Francis Rooney of Florida said. He said, so the question is that enough of an abuse of power to remove the president from office? I don't know. I need to think about that a lot more. I haven't made up my mind. I've got to be able to look at myself in the mirror, and I've got to be able to look at my kids and my friends and family and know that what I did was right. So he's being thoughtful about it. But, when maybe I made a mistake, Jennifer, a moment ago when I said, why is this the hill they want to die on? Clearly, many of these Republican senators and other members of the House of Representatives don't think they're dying on any hill.
Right. They think this is the only way they survive. They are afraid, on one hand, from a primary challenge. If they break with the president, even if they don't have a primary challenge, they're afraid that the Republicans won't turn out and they'll be beaten in the general election. And the thing of it is that these people do not have, I guess, the imagination or perhaps the ambition to do something else in life. For them, being in the United States Senate apparently is anything and everything they've always wanted. So they will do anything to keep these seats. You'd think these
It's
people
not that
would
great
want
of
a
a
life
job,
beyond the
Jennifer.
Senate. Right.
It's not that great of a job. Well, I don't get that, particularly being in the House. You're a
Exactly.
backbencher in the House. You're in the minority.
Exactly.
Why not? I mean, why not be the person that, maybe has a historic separation from this president? I think that there's a huge
Exactly.
opportunity for somebody. It's mystery.
Let's go down that road for a second. I think I've got a chance to just ask you this question, Jennifer. What does that look like? What if you are that group of people? We got a couple of them running for president. 2 of the 3 people running against Donald Trump have never really found much need to separate from him. Bill Weld is sort of a bit of a standout on that front. But what does it look like? Do you build another Republican Party? Do you call it something else? Do you peel off? Or do you just hope that enough of the remnants of the Republican Party survive so that conservatives in this country can have a political home after Donald Trump?
Well, I actually hope none of this party survives. I hope all of them lose badly. I think if you have a devastation, if you have a complete wipeout, there's a hope that the Tim Millers of the world will take control. They'll have a party, or at least a shell of a party, to operate, and they can bring in new blood, new people who have not gone along with this absolute farce, and try to create something that looks like a responsible center-right party. We need 2 parties in this country, but right now we only have, one that's functional and, perhaps a little too self-destructive, and the other is completely amoral and anti-American. So it's not a good position for a democracy like ours to be in.
Jennifer Rubin and Tim Miller, thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Coming up, the White House has slammed the forthcoming anonymous book detailing Trump administration chaos because the purported senior Trump official who wrote it has chosen to remain anonymous. But next week, several senior officials will be describing chaos inside the administration live on television in the impeachment hearings. That's next.